So Lawrence Okolie makes a successful heavyweight debut, knocking out Hussein Mohammed with one punch in the first round on the undercard of Brad Pauls versus Denzel Bentley. Let's talk about it. Now, the big story going into this fight was Lawrence Okolie's weight, because in May last year, he was a 200-pound cruiserweight. In May this year, he was a 223-pound bridgerweight. But for his fight with Hussein Mohammed, he was a 260-pound heavyweight. That's an enormous amount of weight to put on in that time frame. And so many people were concerned, especially after seeing Lawrence Okolie at the weigh-in, because a lot of that extra weight was clearly not muscle. I'm not saying none of it was muscle, but there's certainly a lot of padding around Okolie's midriff now. Now, Okolie says that when he was fighting at cruiserweight, he was walking around at like 230, 240 anyway. And that may well be true, but that doesn't mean you need to weigh 20 pounds extra for your heavyweight debut. In any event, he comes out in the first round, and despite the weight gain, he's bouncing up and down on his toes. And he's being aggressive. You know, Okolie has been criticized by many people, including myself in the past, for doing far too much holding and for being terribly negative in various fights. But credit where it's due, in his last two fights under Joe Gallagher, he's been exciting. He's gone in there and set about his opponent and taken them out. He did it with Brzezinski at Bridgerweight in Poland, and he did it here with Hussein Mohammed at Wembley Arena. Now, the opposition hasn't been amazing. Nevertheless, he did what he was supposed to do against that level opposition. Bear in mind, Lawrence Okolie was an Olympian. So he's come out aggressive. He's looking to let his hands go. He's not trying to hold. The weight is going to take some getting used to, I think, for boxing fans, because Okolie's always had a bit of an awkward build, and biomechanically, he's a bit awkward. For some people, that can be the result of being too skinny. But with Lawrence Okolie, with all the extra weight on, he actually looked even more awkward, to me anyway, in terms of his biomechanics. He was bouncing around, and he's got this cushioning around his midriff, and it was kind of discombobulating to watch. But as strange as it looked, he was still able to move his feet quickly, fighting off that bounce, walking his opponent onto shots. And when that right hand landed, it had devastating effect. Hussein Mohammed went down. He did manage to get up, but he was in no position to continue, in the referee's judgment at least. So Okolie did his thing. In all fairness, post-fight, he did say that Joe Gallagher wants him to come in lighter for his next fight and be a bit slimmer. Okolie said he took the fight on relatively short notice at a relatively short camp. That may well be the case, but you would want to see, especially at this stage of his career, Lawrence Okolie being as disciplined as possible in between fights. We're all human at the end of the day. Okolie's had some issues outside the ring, promotional issues, this, that, and the other. He lives in Dubai. He has his own restaurant out there, and there are different distractions and things he has to contend with. I think he's got a family now as well. So I get it, but boxing is a brutal sport. It's a ruthless sport. And you have to be so disciplined. Unless you are some type of generational talent, you're going to need to be so disciplined to succeed at the highest levels. I mean, Alexander Usyk being a shining example. This guy's never out of shape. This guy doesn't balloon up in weight. That's what it takes if you want to make it at the top level long term. Lawrence Okolie, moving forward, I'd like to see him no heavier than, let's say, 240, 245, absolute max. One thing I've always respected about Lawrence is the fact that he pursues tough competition. He's always done that. Whatever you think about him, he's always pursued tough competition. He's never sat back and tried to pat his record for years. No, he's always gone out there and tried to fight the best. I can only respect that. And he says at heavyweight, he intends to do the same. He intends to go for the likes of Zhang, Kabayel, and whoever else is above him in the WBC rankings, beat them in a final eliminator and secure a title shot. Let's see if he follows up. His track record suggests that he will, but again, you never know until he's actually signed the contract and he's in the ring with the guy. Now, the biggest question for me, as far as how well Lawrence Okolie will fare at heavyweight, is how well he can take a heavyweight punch. He suggested that his punch resistance was diminished at cruiserweight because he was so drained. Okay, well, we'll find out whether that's the case. One thing that I don't think is in question, at least not to me, is his punching power at heavyweight. I think that right hand has got plenty of mustard on it. And even though he just knocked out a pie in Hussein Mohammed, I suspect that right hand will have a similar effect on the majority of heavyweights out there. If he can land it like that flush, get a guy to walk onto it. So I think he's an interesting addition to the heavyweight division. And if he continues to fight in this aggressive fashion, then it's all good. Let me know what you guys think about Lawrence Okolie as a heavyweight? What did you make of his performance? What did you make of his weight? And how do you see his prospects moving forward? Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, make sure you check out my exclusive Patreon content. I just uploaded this film study on Julian Jackson and Gerald McClellan, where I analyze video footage of several of their fights in the run-up to their historic first fight between two of the most devastating knockout punchers in middleweight history. If you want to access this video along with hundreds of hours worth of other exclusive boxing content, as well as our members chat, just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called the Boxing Brotherhood. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android, because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.